For 30 years, a truth slept in a royal drawer, silent, sealed, and meant to stay buried forever. Until one calm afternoon inside Clarence House, Prince William opened a thin cream envelope, and the world he thought he knew tilted. His hands shook as he read Kate's DNA results, hidden long before she ever met him, a secret the palace protected, a truth her parents never told her. And when Kate finally saw what William saw, the look in her eyes made even the royal guards outside freeze. What happens when the future queen discovers her entire identity was rewritten without her consent? If stories like this keep you glued to the screen, make sure you tap like. It really helps the channel grow. And if you enjoy deep dives into the lies behind the palace doors, hit subscribe and share this video with someone who loves royal mysteries just as much as you do. The afternoon sun drifted through the tall windows of Clarence House, quiet and golden, one of those London afternoons that felt too peaceful to be trusted. Prince William moved slowly through the private archive room, the one space in the entire residence where even senior staff rarely entered without permission. He'd come for something simple. Old estate papers connected to his father's upcoming biography. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just paperwork. But fate rarely announced itself politely. William brushed dust off a stack of documents, setting aside files with the rhythm of someone trying to be useful, trying to keep his mind busy. And then his hand froze. An envelope, hidden at the bottom of a pile that absolutely shouldn't have contained anything personal, stared back at him like it had been waiting. Cream-colored, thick, heavy, sealed with darkened red wax. The handwriting was unmistakably official. Catherine Elizabeth Middleton. DNA analysis. January 1995. For a moment, William didn't breathe. His first instinct was disbelief. Some kind of clerical error, misfiling, a coincidence that couldn't possibly involve his wife. The date hit him next. Kate would have been 13, long before St. Andrews, long before they met, long before the public knew her name. What possible reason would the palace have to run a DNA test on a teenage girl who wasn't connected to royalty in any way? The question chilled him. He turned the envelope over. The wax seal was perfect, too perfect. Someone had clearly opened it once, resealed it, then buried it deep in the system where no one, not even a future king, was supposed to find it. The weight of it felt unnatural in his hands, like it carried 30 years of silence. William moved to the window, watching the gardener below rake leaves with calm, unhurried movements. The world remained ordinary while his world quietly shifted. His mother had lived with secrets. His father had, too. But he and Kate had promised each other something different. Transparency, honesty, partnership. This felt like a betrayal of everything they'd fought to build. He didn't want to open it. He had to open it. He reached for the old silver letter opener, engraved, polished, a relic of monarchs before him. The metal slid beneath the seal with a soft crack, a sound that pierced the quiet room like a warning. Inside were 2 documents. The first was clinical, printed on the letterhead of a private London laboratory. William skimmed the headings, his heartbeat quickening. Subject, Catherine Elizabeth Middleton. Date of birth, January 9, 1982. Age at testing, 13. Test type, paternity analysis. Tested against Michael Francis Middleton. He swallowed hard and forced himself to read the conclusion. The probability of paternity is 0.3%. Michael Francis Middleton is excluded as the biological father. The sentence blurred in front of him. He read it again and again. Each time, the meaning struck harder. Kate, his Kate, had lived her entire life believing one truth, and he now held undeniable proof of another. The second document was worse. Buckingham Palace letterhead. February 1995. Marked strictly confidential. A memorandum. Matter investigated per HM's instruction. Subject remains unaware. Family cooperative and discreet. Biological paternity traced to civilian source. No security concerns. File sealed per HM's express direction. No further action required. William's knees weakened. He sat down heavily, the leather chair creaking beneath him. The Queen had known. His father had known. The institution had quietly assessed Kate's bloodline before she ever stepped foot inside their world. Someone had tested her paternity at 13. Someone had filed the truth away. Someone had decided she didn't need to know. His mind flashed through memories. Kate laughing as she told stories from childhood. Kate speaking warmly of her dad, teaching her to ride a bike. Kate cry on their wedding day when Michael squeezed her hand before walking her down the aisle. None of that had been a lie, but the foundations beneath all of it were suddenly cracked. His phone buzzed. A simple message from Kate. Lewis's football late. Home by 6 red heart should we get takeaway. The normalcy made his chest tighten. She was out there living her life with complete trust in the world around her. Meanwhile, William had just discovered something that would carve straight through her heart. This couldn't be told over the phone. Couldn't be dropped casually during dinner. This was a truth that would shatter. That needed gentleness. That needed timing. But he couldn't hide it. He wouldn't become the next person who kept her in the dark. Not after everyone else already had. He photographed the documents quickly. Insurance, just in case the palace tried to reclaim or bury them again, then slipped the envelope into his jacket. It felt like he was carrying a stone. As he left the archive room, the corridor seemed colder than usual. Portraits of former monarchs lined the walls, faces carved with duty, sacrifice, and secrets. Many secrets. Too many. For the first time in his life, William hated the eyes watching him from those gilded frames. He stepped outside into the late afternoon air. His driver saluted, opened the car door, but William barely acknowledged it. As he pulled onto the road, London traffic swallowed him. Buses lumbering, horns blaring, pedestrians hurrying to the fading light. A city full of people carrying their own private burdens. His just happened to be a royal one. At a red light, he stared down at his wedding band. He remembered the moment Kate slid it onto his finger, the look in her eyes, the warmth of her hand, the promise they shared. No secrets. Ever. He'd meant it. She'd meant it. But the institution she married into clearly hadn't. He wondered who had ordered the test, why it happened, how the palace even knew to look, what had triggered suspicion. He wondered how Kate would react, how badly this would devastate her, whether she'd blame him, even if she didn't say it, whether this truth might splinter something in their marriage. And worst of all, he wondered what else the palace had hidden. He reached Kensington Palace just as dusk settled. The familiar brick facade looked the same as always. Warm light glowing from windows, the quiet hum of family life tucked behind history-laden walls. Home. But tonight, walking inside felt like crossing a threshold with no way back. The moment Kate saw him in the doorway, her smile froze. "Well, what's wrong?" she whispered. The envelope felt heavy in his pocket, burning through the fabric. "We need to talk," William said softly. "After the children are asleep." Kate's face tightened. "You're scaring me." "I know," he murmured, pulling her into a quiet, tight embrace. "I'm sorry." And as he held her close, his heartbeat steady but hollow, one truth echoed louder than all the rest. Everything, absolutely everything, was about to change. The moment the door clicked shut behind the children's bedroom, a stillness fell across the hallway, heavy, fragile, and loaded with a truth William wished he didn't have to deliver. Kate stood near the sitting room window, her arms crossed, her eyes searching his face for answers he hadn't yet spoken. "Will," she said quietly, "whatever this is, just tell me." He reached into his jacket and pulled out the cream-colored envelope. He didn't hand it to her immediately. For a moment, he simply held it between them like a fragile artifact, as though the wrong movement might cause everything to splinter. Kate frowned. "What is that?" William swallowed. "I found it today, in my father's private archive." She took the envelope slowly, her fingers brushing over the wax seal, her eyes narrowing as she read the writing. "DNA analysis?" Her voice cracked, thin, confused. "William, this is my name." He nodded. Her eyes flicked up, searching his face. "Did you open it?" "Yes." "Why would there be a DNA test of me at 13? She whispered. "What were they testing? Who requested it? Why would this be in Clarence House?" Kate's breath grew quicker, sharper, her heartbeat visible at her throat. She didn't wait for an explanation. She opened the envelope, her hands trembling so badly that the papers nearly slipped to the floor. She read the first line, and everything in her face changed. The color drained from her cheeks. Her mouth parted slightly, as if her body had forgotten how to breathe. Her eyes began racing across the page, rereading the same line again and again, hoping the words would magically rearrange into something less devastating. When she finally spoke, her voice was so small it barely sounded like hers. "No, this is wrong." Her fingers clenched around the paper. "This is wrong, Will. Michael is my father." William moved closer, but she stepped back sharply, as if she needed physical distance from anyone who already knew the truth. "Kate, don't," she whispered. "Just don't." She read the conclusion again. Michael Francis Middleton is excluded as the biological father. A strangled sound escaped her, something between disbelief and pain. "My dad, he's not my dad." Her knees buckled. William caught her before she fell, guiding her gently to the sofa. She was shaking, almost violently, the kind of shaking that came from grief too big for the body to contain. "Why would this test exist?" she whispered. "Who would do this? My parents? Your family? Who knew? Who else knows about me except me?" William crouched in front of her. "Kate, the palace knew. Since 1995, before we ever met." Her head snapped up. "The palace knew?" "Yes. And they didn't tell me." Her voice rose, raw and disbelieving. "They kept a file on me? They tested me like I was, what, some sort of political risk?" William exhaled shakily. There was also a memo from the Queen's private secretary. Kate's eyes filled instantly with tears. "Don't tell me." But he did. He handed her the second document. She read slowly, lips trembling. Subject remains unaware. Family cooperative and discreet. File per HM's express direction. Her eyes lifted, wide and glassy. "So everyone knew." Her voice cracked open entirely. "Everyone except me." The grief turned to anger so quickly William almost didn't see the transition happen. "My parents knew," she whispered. "My mother, my father, they agreed to this? They let the palace test me? They kept quiet." She stood abruptly, pacing with shaky, unsettled energy. "This means," she stopped, swallowing hard. "This means my mother had an affair." The words hung there, heavy and electric. She turned away from him, pressing both hands over her face. "Oh, God, well, I don't know who I am." He moved her carefully, giving her space. "Kate, you're still you. None of this changes." "It changes everything," she cried. "My childhood, my relationship with Dad, my place in my family, every memory I've ever had." She paused, her breath hitching in her chest. "Do George, Charlotte, and Louis need to know? Will the press know? Will they question their bloodline? Will they question me?" William stepped closer. "Kate, look at me." She did, eyes red, wet, and terrified. "You are their mother. Their identity comes from you. Your love, your presence, your strength. Not this." He touched the papers gently. "Family is not DNA. Not in this house." Kate let out a shuddering breath, leaning into him, but only for a moment before the panic pulled her back. "I need to speak to my parents," she said suddenly. "Now. Tonight. They have to explain. They can't just hide this for 30 years and expect me to smile and host Christmas morning brunch like nothing happened." William hesitated. "It's late. I don't care. I can't sleep with this inside me." He nodded slowly. "Tomorrow morning, first thing, I'll drive us to Bucklebury." She wiped her cheeks, her expression hollow. "And the palace? What do we do about them?" William's jaw tightened. "We deal with them after. But first, your parents." Kate nodded, hugging her arms around herself. Then she whispered something he would never forget. "I don't know who my father is, Will, and I don't know if the man who raised me will look at me the same way again." William moved toward her. This time she didn't step back. "He loves you," William said. "Nothing can change that." Kate rested her forehead against his shoulder. "But I've changed," she whispered. "And I can't go back to who I was this morning before you open that envelope." They stood there in silence, two people who had faced scandals, pressure, duty, and grief, and yet nothing had prepared them for this. Nothing had prepared Kate for the fracture in her identity. Nothing had prepared William for the guilt of being the one who brought the truth into her hands. That night, Kate cried quietly in their bedroom, the papers resting on the table like ghosts. She cried not loudly, not angrily, just a slow release of everything she thought she knew. And William lay awake beside her, holding her through the trembling. Tomorrow, they would enter Bucklebury as husband and wife. But they would walk out carrying a truth none of them had ever asked for. Morning arrived with a kind of cold, gray stillness that seemed to match the weight pressing on Kate's chest. She hadn't slept. William knew at the moment she opened her eyes. There was no confusion, no slow waking, just immediate awareness, immediate pain. The truth had followed her straight into daylight. By 7 a.m., they were already driving through the Berkshire countryside toward Bucklebury. Fields blurred past, stripped bare by winter. Kate sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She hadn't spoken more than a few words, but William could feel the storm gathering inside her. At the Middleton home, everything looked heartbreakingly normal. Smoke from the chimney, Carol's car parked neatly in the driveway, Michael's gardening boots by the porch. Kate stood frozen before knocking. "This was the safest place in my world," she whispered. "And now—" William gently took her hand. "We face it together." She knocked. Carol opened the door, her face brightening, until she saw Kate's expression. The color drained instantly. "Kate? Darling, what's happened?" Kate brushed past her mother, stepping into the hallway. The house smelled like fresh coffee and laundry detergent, comforting scents that suddenly felt foreign. Michael appeared from the kitchen, holding a dish towel. He froze when he saw the documents in Kate's hands. "Dad," she said quietly, "we need to talk. All of us." The conversation unfolded at the kitchen table. For chairs, for lives about to unravel. Kate placed the envelope in the center, like evidence at a trial. Her voice shook, but it didn't waver. "I know the truth. I know Michael isn't my biological father. I know about the DNA test. And I know the palace sealed the results." Carol gasped softly. Michael shut his eyes, his face collapsing in shame. Kate's voice cracked as she continued, "I need you both to tell me everything." Silence swallowed the room. Finally, Carol spoke, her voice brittle, trembling. "There was an inheritance dispute, your father's cousin, legal mess. Everyone needed to be tested. We thought nothing of it. Michael and I had been married 2 years when you were born." She swallowed, tears pooling. "But the results, they were unexpected." Kate stared at her mother. "Unexpected? Mom, they say Dad isn't my father." Michael wiped his eyes. "Kate, I know this is devastating. But from the moment you were born, from the moment I held you, you were mine. Nothing changes that. Then why didn't you tell me?" Her voice rose, years of trust cracking apart. "How could you keep this secret for 30 years, knowing what it meant to me?" Carol finally broke. "Because I was ashamed." The confession hung in the air like smoke. "I was young, stupid. I made a terrible mistake. Your father and I were separated briefly before we got engaged again. I met someone, it was brief, confusing, and then Michael and I reconciled. I convinced myself you were his. I needed you to be his." Kate pressed her hand to her mouth. "James Hartford." Carol nodded, sobbing. "I never told him about you. I didn't want to destroy the life Michael and I built." Kate closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them again, they were filled with something William recognized, grief mixed with steel. "And the palace?" she asked. "How did they get involved?" Michael exhaled shakily. "After the inheritance case, someone connected to the royal household learned of the test. They contacted us. They collected the results. They told us it would remain confidential as long as we cooperated." Kate's voice dropped. "So they took my DNA, my truth, and locked away." Carol nodded, tears streaming. We truly believed it was better for you not to know." Kate's chair scraped sharply as she stood. "You decided for me. You, Mom. You, Dad. And the palace. You all decided who I was allowed to be. And now my entire identity is shredded. Michael reached for her hand. I am your father. Nothing. She pulled away, tears shining. You are my father. But you also lied to me. A silence full of heartbreak settled around the room. Finally, Kate whispered, I need time. I'm not leaving you. But I can't pretend this doesn't change anything. William placed a hand on her back as they left the house. Kate didn't look back. The drive back to London was suffocatingly quiet. Kate stared out the window, her eyes unfocused, her hand trembling in her lap. Then William's phone rang. His father's private secretary. His Royal Highness expects you both at Clarence House. Immediately, William's grip on the wheel tightened. We'll come when we're ready. With respect, sir, His Majesty insists. Kate let out a bitter laugh. Of course he does. The palace is preparing damage control before they even ask if I'm okay. William didn't respond, because she wasn't wrong. Clarence House felt different the moment they stepped in. Guards tense, staff avoiding eye contact. Something was brewing, something big. They were escorted directly to Charles's private study. No tea, no polite greetings, no softening. Charles stood by the window, hands behind his back, jaw set. You should have come sooner, he said without turning. This matter is escalating. Kate's voice was cold. You mean the truth is coming out? Charles finally faced them. I mean the press has it. William stiffened. What? A leak? Charles said. Someone accessed a seal file. The Daily Mail is running the story tomorrow. Kate's face went pale. So the palace kept this from me for 30 years, and now you've lost control of it? Charles bristled. We have protocols, procedures. Protocols? Kate snapped. You tested my DNA without my knowledge. You hid the results. You manipulated my parents. And now you want to brief me like I'm staff. Charles inhaled sharply. We must formulate a response. A united message. The monarchy cannot appear. Manipulative. Kate cut in. Invading? Dishonest. The room went dead quiet. William stepped forward, voice low but firm. You had no right. None. You investigated her like she was an asset. Charles's frustration cracked through. I did what was necessary to protect the institution. Kate's eyes darkened. And who protected me? Silence. When the press publishes this, I speak, she said. My truth, not the palace's. Charles tried one last warning. Catherine, if you go public without alignment, I'm not your subordinate, she said. I'm a woman whose entire identity was kept from her by the very family she married into. And with that, she turned and walked out. William followed without hesitation. In the car, Kate stared ahead, her voice barely above a whisper. They've been controlling my story for 30 years. I'm done letting them. William took her hand. What do you want to do? Her answer was immediate. Speak. All of it. Before the tabloids twist it. He nodded. We'll do it together. And for the first time that day, her grip tightened on his, not in panic, but in resolve. The palace had moved its pieces. But Kate was done playing by their rules. Tomorrow, the world would learn the truth. But tonight, Kate would take back her voice. Sunrise slid across London like a quiet confession. Soft, golden, and far too gentle for the storm that was about to break over the monarchy. The world didn't yet know that a truth buried for 3 decades was minutes away from igniting headlines, interviews, press briefings, and palace panic. But Kate knew. She felt it in her chest, steady, fierce, unmovable. She stood in Kensington Palace's private sitting room, wearing a simple cream blouse, her hair pulled back, a faint tremor in her hands. Not fear, drive. She had cried all she needed to cry. Now she was ready to speak. William stood behind her, adjusting the camera for their recorded statement. No palace press team, no scripted notes, no layers of royal polishing. Just the two of them, just the truth. As he adjusted the lighting, he glanced at her. You don't have to do this today, he murmured. Kate shook her head. If I wait, my story becomes theirs. If I speak, now it's mine. He gave a small nod. Whenever you're ready. Kate sat, inhaled deeply, and began speaking, softly at first, then with the clarity of someone reclaiming her life. My name is Catherine, and for 30 years, I was told a version of myself that wasn't complete. William stayed silent, watching through the lens as a woman he loved spoke with a grace that no crisis could break. I recently learned that the father who raised me may not be my biological father. This truth was kept from me by my parents and by the institution I married into. I'm sharing this not to blame, but to be honest. Secrets like this reshape people. They change families. They change mine. Her eyes glistened, but her voice stayed steady. I know who my father is, the man who raised me, loved me, guided me. But I'm also choosing to learn who I come from biologically. I hope you'll allow me the privacy and humanity to do that. When the recording ended, Kate exhaled as if releasing 30 years of tension. That's it, she whispered. William pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. You are extraordinary. The world reacts. The video went live at noon. Within 30 minutes, every major outlet, BBC, CNN, The Guardian, even international tabloids, ran the story. But Kate's directness, her vulnerability, her refusal to be framed as a victim or a scandal, it changed everything. Instead of judgment, the public flooded social media with support. She didn't deserve the secrecy. She handled this with such dignity. Protect Kate at all costs. She's stronger than the crown. Within the palace walls, however, the mood was different. Charles convened an emergency meeting. Advisors argued over messaging, timelines, blame. Some insisted the monarchy should release its own statement. Others whispered that Kate had defied tradition, broken protocol, set a dangerous precedent. But one truth kept emerging. She had spoken first. She had shaped the narrative. And people believed her. For the first time in years, the monarchy wasn't leading the conversation. Kate was. The biological father. 2 days later, Kate received an email through a private intermediary. A message that would have terrified her days earlier, but now brought a strange calm. James Hartford, a quiet man, former art history lecturer, now living a simple life in Bristol. He'd seen the statement. He'd known, instantly. He wrote with humility. I never knew you existed. Your mother never told me. I don't want to disrupt your life or take anything from you. But if you wish to meet, I'm here. Kate stared at the message for a long while. Then she replied, Yes, I want to meet. William offered come with her, but Kate shook her head gently. This part, I need to do alone. The meeting. James Hartford lived in a modest townhouse with ivy creeping up the brick walls. When Kate stepped out of the car, she felt her heartbeat hammering, but not from fear, from curiosity, from the possibility of understanding. He opened the door before she knocked. He looked nothing like Michael, yet something about his eyes, gentle, steady, felt strangely familiar. Catherine, he said softly. Kate swallowed. Hello. They sat inside, cups of tea cooling untouched on the table between them. He explained everything. How he'd met her mother, their brief relationship, their parting without closure. How he'd never imagined a child might have come from those weeks. And when the palace statement appeared, I knew the dates lined up, he said quietly. But I had no right to reach out first. I didn't want to intrude. Kate studied him carefully, not with suspicion, just with wonder. Do you want a relationship? She asked slowly. He took a breath. I want whatever makes you comfortable. If that means occasional letters, I'd be grateful. If it means nothing, I understand. Your father is the man who raised you. I'm not here to compete with him. Kate nodded, tears filling her eyes. Not from sadness, but from something gentler. Relief. You're very kind, she whispered. He smiled faintly. You're very brave. They spoke for an hour, maybe more, about art, childhood memories, fears, the strange nature truth, and even stranger nature destiny. There was no instant bond, no magical click, but there was warmth, understanding, the slow, steady beginning of something new and honest. Before leaving, Kate said softly, I don't know where this leads, but I'd like to keep talking. James nodded, eyes glistening. I'd like that too. Returned to Kensington. That night, Kate returned home exhausted but lighter. William sat waiting on the sofa, his expression full of worry until she gave a small smile. "It went well," she said. He exhaled deeply, pulling her into his arms. "The world is talking about you," he murmured. "But tonight, I only care about how you're doing." Kate rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm okay, really okay. For the first time since you handed me that envelope, I feel like the ground stopped moving." William closed his eyes, holding her tightly. "You were never alone in this." She squeezed his hand. "I know." The new truth. Days passed. The story evolved, but not into scandal, into admiration. Commentators praise her openness. Young adults share their own stories of discovering family secrets. Advocacy groups call for reforms around privacy and DNA ethics. Kate had unknowingly started a national conversation about identity, and people weren't mocking her. They were thanking her. Even the palace, after days of silence, finally issued a statement acknowledging Kate's extraordinary grace and courage during a deeply personal revelation. Charles eventually apologized to her privately, not as a king, but as a man who had misjudged her strength. And Kate accepted it, not because it erased the past, but because she was building a future that didn't depend on resentment. One evening, as she tucked the children into bed, George asked softly, "Mummy, does this mean we're different?" Kate smiled, brushing his hair back. "It means we're human," she whispered, "and being human is the strongest thing we can be." Later that night, she and William stood on the balcony overlooking London. Lights twinkled across the skyline. A city that once frightened her now seemed full of new beginnings. 30 years of secrets," Kate said softly. "Gone." William wrapped his arm around her. "And now, what do you want to do next?" Kate thought for a long moment. "Live. Honestly. Fully. On my terms." She looked out over the city, her life, her truth. And for the first time, she felt completely, beautifully whole. The truth hadn't broken her. It had revealed her.